Hello, hello. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 29 of my Hybrid Athlete podcast. Glad to be with you all today. Saw a few more views on the last episode number 28, my year in review episode. So thank you to anyone who watched. I hope you got some value from it. I hope this thing grows a little bit more this year in 2025. I'm probably going to start doing a little bit more, making a little bit more effort into kind of editing the videos and making, adding some entertainment value. But I think in terms of, like knowledge and, input on fitness, kind of in more of an intermediate to an advanced level, I got a lot to offer. So again, thank you for anyone who follows me. Got about 90 subscribers right now, so hopefully we'll break through that 100 barrier shortly this year and keep things moving along. But yeah, let me get into it. I wanted to today just share a little bit about like the last couple of months. This conversation is pretty much basically about plateaus, dealing with plateaus. For a lot of you, if you've been working out long enough, you kind of reach a point to where you keep working out, you're doing the same thing, or even if you're doing things slightly different, you don't really feel like you're making progress, or your strength isn't increasing, or maybe your body, you don't feel like your body's changing the way you want. There's a couple, I guess, pieces of input that I want to, kind of speak to related to that phenomena that comes from fitness. There's a couple of comments that I want to make about how do you deal with that mentally? How do you kind of force yourself to work through that? And then physically, habitually, how do you change your habits? How do you change your routine so that you can effectively break through those plateaus and then kind of reach a new level? Anyone that's been, working out long enough, or anyone that's really serious about bodybuilding, about endurance, whatever it is, you want to start slow, obviously, but when you get to a point, you're just kind of running, you're trending flat, then you make a jump, then you trend flat, then you make a jump. That's common for everyone. That's common for Derek Lunsford. That's common for Sanson Dowder, the best bodybuilders in the world. That's common for the guy that just started out, who's, yes, he's making quicker gains, but he will also, stop or, kind of trend flat for a while. It depends on how you kind of, change things up with your body and change your routine. I've covered plenty of that, of those ideas about, my training regimen, my splits, how often do I train? In summary, I pretty much go for like a bodybuilding split to where it's like one, maybe two muscle groups at the most, but I never really do full body workouts. I don't really do, I don't do push pull legs. I'm not a fan of that. I'm really a fan of really attacking one muscle group and then systematically doing it so that the following day, for example, I try to avoid doing a heavy back day right before leg day, because on leg day, I also deadlift, which is kind of a lower back exercise. And then I do very intense squats and then machine work. So my legs are crushed after my leg day. And then I, follow up with the leg day 2 or 3 days later, which is light. But that's just kind of maybe a breakdown of how my plateaus came up this last year, and then how I dealt with it, definitely getting past the endurance that I was doing. So if you remember correctly, the following the previous episode that I did, that was basically an episode about just kind of my year in review. I've been doing endurance since 2021. I've gone into half marathons, I've run full marathons. I've always trained very hard. Even when I'm doing marathons, I basically lift weights and still make some kind of, maintain my strength, lose a little bit of muscle as I'm going through the training process of running endurance. But I'm going to drop some images here on this video too. And I'm basically just going to show you here's what it looked like in 2017. You can see that's very skinny. Here's what it looked like in 2021, 2022, when I was eating good, but I was not really dialed in on endurance. I wasn't quite as lean as I am now or this past year. And then here's one that's most recently. It's a back shot of 2020, end of 2024, I think around Christmas or January of this year, very beginning of 2025, where I got, significantly more muscle, but I'm still pretty lean. So, I'm happy with how I look at this point. So that process, that path to basically get from 2017, where I was drinking a lot, I was 155, 160 pounds, basically working in a kitchen, being a kitchen manager, and no care about my nutrition, but I was serious about running a half marathon, my first half marathon. So I learned a lot in that process. I got sick, I got anemia, I was iron deficient, and that really affected my well-being and how I felt. And it taught me a lesson of, if you're going to try to pursue a physical feat or anything that's physically strenuous, it's just like anything. You need to feed your machine, you need to feed your body. So that was my first lesson way back in 2017, beginning of 2018 on nutrition. And then turned to 2019, that's when I got more serious. Okay, not only do I want to run, I also want to lift weights. So in short, I've been like, conscientious of the fact that I want to be a hybrid athlete for, pretty much four or five going on 5 to 6 years. And in that process, I've come into a lot of plateaus, and those plateaus presented themselves in terms of doing a lot of running and not being able to improve a marathon time, or bench pressing the same weight for 4 months. Recently, that has somewhat kind of been the case, but I've definitely made, now that I'm not doing endurance, that's another episode that I'll cover. But I've basically like broken through multiple plateaus, and the way in which I did, I want to share with you guys, because I think there's a lot of people out there. I even see some people in my local gym, and they've been going there a long time, and definitely advanced guys and elite guys will tell you this, like, what's the fucking point if you're going to go to the gym every day and work out and not see progress? Because we're motivated by progress. It's the best, it's the coolest positive feedback loop in endurance, not endurance, but in bodybuilding and weightlifting and fitness overall, is you want to see yourself get better physically, and then mentally you also want to see yourselves get better. So two sides of the coin here for plateaus. If you're discouraged, if you feel like, oh man, I got to work out again, or and this is taking away too much time from my life, or I don't like I don't like the types of workouts I'm doing. I don't like the group that I'm in that does workouts. You can have many excuses or many plateaus, the mental or physical, that basically can discourage you or keep you from really going all in on your fitness. So I'm going to speak first about maybe the mental plateaus and just talk about how those can be, redesigned or reconstructed so that you can really, break through those and not have any limitations, in between your ears. So the one thing that I've noticed, especially for me individually, is if I am working out so hard that I don't feel good when I go to the gym like 5 days a week, not just saying like be mentally strong, like maybe a joint's a little bit sore, but don't be a pussy type thing. That's one thing. But there's people that, and I'm pretty intense when I work out. I mean, I work out very hard a lot of times. And one thing that I was kind of like running into in 2024 specifically was I don't have a very good running session and I don't have a very good weight session. And they're just kind of like mixed together. And I'm so fixated on my schedule and how frequent I'm training that I didn't pay attention to recovery enough or change my routine. It's fine if you work out 6, 7, 8 times a week, but you have to manage the workload as well as the sequence in which you work out. So I was running into an issue to where I'd get to like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'd had like really no energy, but I was still working out, doing similar workouts. Like Thursday was like shoulders, and then Friday was like back, and then I did a very long run on Saturday or something. And by the time I got to the run on Saturday, I couldn't finish the run the way I wanted. And then 2 days, the day leading up to that, and the 2 days before, my weight sessions were off. So that plateau was a situation to where I had to step back and say, how do I change my routine Monday through Wednesday? And sometimes it's not always good to look at a week in terms of 7 days. And what I mean by that is there's a paradigm of training to where it's called a mesocycle technically. And you go into basically a duration of time and you say, okay, I want to accomplish X in Y time. But sometimes you spend more than Y time to accomplish X. Sometimes you spend less. And essentially that causes problems when you're fixated on the time frame, or you're fixated on the process that you said you were going to follow for that entire time. So the point I'm making is, instead of running through my entire endurance season or the past year of saying, I'm going to basically focus on 7 days and I'm going to do a weight session before I have a long run or something. That's what I was doing. I was doing a back session in arms before I ran. Instead, what I did was I stepped back and I said, let me like hardly do anything on that Friday afternoon before I go running. So I literally go to the gym, I'd stretch, I'd basically do like a walk or like a very brisk run, like 5-10 minute jog. That's it. I'd go hit the steam room, the sauna, I'd stretch, and then I'd be done, because I'd already worked out hard Monday through Wednesday. And what I found was that missing time frame of recovery, that was really the only day that really needed to unlock a lot more potential and progress. So two things happened. The quality of my weights increased as I hit Monday, because I wasn't like destroyed on Friday or, Thursday or Friday and saying, oh, now that my muscles are sore, I can still go run, whatever miles I wanted to run for a marathon prep. What happened was both increased in quality because I allowed myself to recover from both. You may not be a hybrid athlete like myself, how I was the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. But my point is that sometimes you really need to step back and say, and ask the question, why am I fixated on the schedule? Why am I fixated on this volume, this repetition? And really like dig to go deep into kind of your brain and inner conscious and say, at what point did I make this decision and say, okay, I've seen somebody who I appreciate or admire as a fitness person train like this, or I read something that says train like this. And then you basically, without really being conscious of it, you get so fixated on that process that you lose opportunities to be happier with your fitness and also make necessary gains. That could be either recovery driven or process driven or form driven, whatever it is. So there's plenty of ways to go about getting better and improving the quality of your body, your fitness, your strength, your performance, whatever. But the point I want to make with that type of, I guess initially I called it a mental plateau is, the mental plateau is being stubborn pretty much and saying, I'm going to be ignorant to this process. And it's not stubborn in terms of, well, I don't want to change completely how I do a rep or how I do my training or my running. It's more of like, I don't want to be stubborn in terms of feeling uncomfortable or feeling like I need to have X number of days or follow a specific paradigm, a training mesocycle, like I was saying. And also I would encourage people to break plateaus. You'd really want to treat the preparation. You want to treat the mental part of it specifically by planning ahead and always planning ahead and looking forward to each week and have internal conversations with yourself and say, how is this week going to be different? And the reason I think that's valuable is because we're all creatures of habit. And when you get into a habit of you're not excited about any day of the week or any part of working or any part, it's like if you're a business person, if you're not excited about of what you sell or what product you have, or basically who the people you work with, you're not going to enjoy it. And it's the same thing with fitness. You need to have those internal conversations that will help you break plateaus to where you say, "Wow, this last week I did squats and deadlifts on the same day. This time I'm gonna force myself to do heavier squats one day, but then split it up so that the day I do deadlifts, which is now on a different day, I also force myself to have a heavier deadlift. I don't know how I'm going to react to training if back training is going to need to be adjusted or reworked, but it's almost like a new stimulus mentally that says, okay, I need to be on my toes and make sure that I keep my training intensity up, but I'm not doing the same thing I've done the last 4, 5, 6 weeks or the 2, 3, 4 months. So within a mesocycle, and I'll classify a mesocycle as like maybe 2 to 4 months. I think that's fair. You have an 8-week paradigm to like a 16-week paradigm. A lot of times what happens is when you train hard enough, there's really going to come 1 week to where you're like, holy shit, like I just took a day off and I'm still sore. Nick Walker is a great example. Nick Walker is a tremendous bodybuilder, and he's had this discussion with some of the guys in his podcast. I think it was Guy Cisternino. And he was saying, yeah, I worked out. So it's a paradigm of like 7 weeks. And then there's 1 week where I literally need to just like go through the motions and recover. That should be a positive response to like, wow, I worked so hard in 7 days. That's another way of breaking a plateau. When you rest, you want to allow yourself to recover, but in the process of that full recovery, you broke that plateau and your strength levels are going to be higher than that week 6 right before you took that necessary break. So that's another kind of mental focus there. I guess it's a physical plateau too, but regardless, a plateau nonetheless, of basically saying, okay, I'm going to acquire this recovery time that I deserve, but in doing so, I'm going to like break through a plateau, and then I'm going to either change my routine or increase the weight when I come back for that new fresh week in the new mesocycle. So in this example, the Nick Walker example, it's basically 8 weeks, right? 7 weeks of very hard training, and then 8 weeks of like maybe have a cheat meal, maybe do this, take time off, whatever. So that's kind of what we're getting at with plateaus, is they can either be like intensity plateaus or just recovery driven. And I think recovery driven plateaus are easier because you simply just force yourself. And it may not be, if you're obsessed with the gym, kind of like me and other people, it may be hard just to tell yourself, I'm not going to go work out today, or I'm going to go to the gym and just take it nice and light because, you're like, oh, I'm a pussy because I'm not working out hard, or you're just ignorant and stubborn about the process and the necessary element of recovery and fitness. But the other, I guess, a shift into the other types of plateaus that are also, part of this, like this mindset or this phenomena in fitness of being flat, trending flat for too long, is, like I just said, there's a part of it that's, that's more mentally force yourself to change your habits and then reap the benefits of changing those habits relatively soon. Like if you can force yourself to take 3-4 days light because you've been just pounding the weights and just, going balls out for like 2-3 months in a row, And then you kind of feel like mentally you feel like, oh, I earned this rest. And then you come back and your bench press went up by 15 pounds, or your bench press went up by 3 or 4 reps at the same weight. That happened to me like this last summer. Was I was coming back from the marathon and I was thinking, you know what? It would be really be cool as if within the same calendar year I can bench press 275 pounds. But I finished my marathon in May, and then I was hitting in July, and I was like, man, I'm working out really hard. I'm working really hard at chest. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give myself a couple extra days because I was doing chest twice a week. And then I went back to like the 225 that I was like struggling to get 3-4 reps. And then I just banged out 7 or 8 reps because I allowed myself to fully recover and just kind of break past that plateau of, if I'm not working hard at the muscle or the exercise that I want to improve, then I'm losing time or losing progress or opportunity. That's not always the case. So my point in that is just, kind of, I guess they go hand in hand. And maybe I haven't been totally clear on this particular conversation of what's a mental plateau, what's a physical plateau, because they do go hand in hand. But I think you can understand where I'm coming from. Any of you who are, get frustrated at the times where, man, like I've been squatting 2 days a week for 3 months and nothing's changing. Let's get into the physical side of that. So varying intensity and ways in which you cause the most damage on your muscle are very important. Bodybuilders will always tell you it doesn't really matter the weight. It matters like how much damage you do to the muscle and how much trauma you put on that muscle. And then a lot of it's type 2. Type 2 is like those quick twitch fibers that are like, muscle mass to build muscle. This is getting more into bodybuilding, not like endurance or any type of fitness now. But essentially, when you basically have that approach of, when you change your approach from that regard, it's, okay, how come I've been doing the same stuff and I'm giving, and you can be giving full effort, but nothing's happening. I would suggest one of two things, and this is from experience, but it's helped me. And this is a recent revelation for me, especially for arms, because I used to do like the same exercise for arms, and I had, I have decent arms, I have decent growth, but recently I've really like kind of in size, from a size standpoint, my arms have gotten bigger and I feel it. And I feel them, and it's a good feeling because I've always done arms like 3, 4, 5 days a week, but I haven't really like reaped the benefits of it. But, and this can be for bench or squat or anything, but my suggestion is do a similar volume, like similar rep and set schedule, but make it like completely different from how it feels. So my example is I've always done dumbbell curls and hammer curls, and it feels, I've definitely gotten benefits from it. But what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to basically exchange the dumbbell curls for preacher curls, and then focus on preacher curls 3 times a week, and basically just do dumbbell curls. Like if it's like a leg day or something, just to get a few extra sets in, that's fine. But my primary versus my secondary, if that makes sense, became something to where it feels different. It might be like it's the same muscle group, but it has to feel different. And by definition, something feeling different can look the same or look different. I don't really care about that. But this is more, my suggestion is do something to where it feels different. And that may be like front squat versus back squat. And they're pretty similar, your body's moving in a similar fashion, but you might say, wow, I really have to stabilize my core in a front squat. So I get a lot of value out of that. And I've noticed my back, my lower ladder, my chain has really like gotten stronger, and I'm leaner, I'm more defined in my back or whatever it is from changing that, doing the slight adjustment. What I've discovered is preacher curls have really forced me to improve 2 things that are important: my grip strength and then my inner bicep. So kind of if you come up with a bicep curl and a hammer curl works the outside, but if you come up kind of with your wrist turned, then you really work like the inner bicep, which is great. So that's like something that helped me break through a plateau in like how my arms look, or like the size of my biceps, given like basically input for output, right? So plenty of input, like, not dozens, but at least 15, maybe 20 sets of arms like every week. That's great. Probably more, but not as much growth as I feel like I deserve from the effort that I'm putting in. So it feels different for a reason. If something feels different for a reason, you're probably getting a different stimulus. That's not always the case, but that's what I would suggest, is really figuring out, okay, what's a synonymous exercise that targets the same muscle or muscle group, but definitely feels different. Another example is hamstring curls. So you can do the lying hamstring curls, or you can do the seated ones. And depending on how you do the seated ones, if you're cheating or if you're like swinging your body, you can make it easier. But if you're like strict in your upper body and your legs, you're forcing your leg literally just to squeeze down and hold, those have been tearing me up lately. And I think that's another example of, okay, it's the same muscle group, same exercise, same time of the workout, right? So I hit legs, I hit squats, heavy squats, really like intense, heavy ass squats. And that really like, basically tears me down for most of the workout. But then I go into like the last part of it, the last quarter of the workout, and it's like two final exercises. One of them is hamstrings. I have basically exchanged lying hamstring curls for seated. And then I forced myself mentally to say, this feels different for a reason, because I'm really tearing into the muscle. And I want to like really like get more size and parts of my hamstrings that are different, that aren't, normally where I feel that exercise. So that's another plateau, is like same intensity, same effort, same time working out, but just a different feel in the same exercise. And I think that really makes a difference. And when I say feel, it doesn't have to be like it hurts more or it's harder to do. It's just more of like, like what type of stress? I feel out of 7 out of 10, out of 1 out of 10, I feel a level 8 of stress on this part of my bicep. But I also feel that same number, 7, 8 out of 10, on a different part of my bicep, targeting biceps doing a similar exercise. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I feel like plateaus for all of you, you'll break through them easier and more frequent if you kind of focus on those two types of approaches: a mental approach and then also a physical approach. And the physical approach isn't always straightforward. You might have to discover it or kind of figure it out yourself. But the benefits of really like getting in the habit of being aware of plateaus, I think, is really going to benefit anyone. It doesn't matter what level you're at. There's guys that are top IFBB pros, and they've discussed this type of stuff to where they really change like one part of one muscle group, and then it makes all the difference in the world. For me, I've been focusing on back the last 6 to 8 months, because my back was never, top tier, but I'll post an image here in this video basically of how my back looks now in 2025. And I'm really happy. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good physique. Like I have a pretty good, balance and everything. If I really want to ever do maybe an amateur bodybuilding show, I would definitely have to tighten up my gut. I definitely have to like diet hard at the end and try to stay big enough to do a show. But yeah, bottom line is, that's, I guess, the best example of my plateaus is in my back. I've been adding in more T-bar rows and like really like do long extensions, longer reps, and then hold and squeeze at the top, or at the seated cable rows are great. I've been really making some good progress with those. So yeah, plateaus are a natural part of bodybuilding, or a natural part of fitness, CrossFit, endurance, whatever you're doing, powerlifting. So bottom line is, diet is obviously foundational. Getting sleep, nutrition is always there. But mental and physical plateaus are ones that can really discourage people. And I would encourage any of you to really kind of be reflective, around this time, especially after the New Year's resolution. I went to the gym in January when I got back from my trip, and there's hundreds of people, dozens, if not hundreds, of extra people in the gym over the course of the evening, the afternoon, and they've all gone away pretty much at this point. So it's not easy. It's not easy to basically stay focused and attack these plateaus and get through them and really make the gains that's worth it. It's that delayed gratification that sometimes is hard to deal with, but making a good decision to break through a plateau, or strategically plan how to break through that plateau now, is gonna be beneficial to you in the not so distant future. So I hope that all makes sense and that helps. But thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.